Hi, my name is Ozzie Jurock. I'm the host of OzBuzz, where we interview eclectic, interesting people in and around the real estate umbrella. And today I'm really pleased and honored to have with us Mr. Rictoria from Victoria, certainly known for years and years as the top realtor and entrepreneur extraordinaire in Victoria. He and his wife run a great real estate company, but he's also been a developer. A few years he went into development, and you started a building apartment in Langford in 2014. What brought that on?
Actually, the way it happened was that Sherry and I sat down at the beginning of January in 2014, and we wanted to figure out what we needed for income in retirement. And we wrote down, this is the amount that we want to have. And it kind of created a tension, like I use a lot of Robert Fritz's stuff. He wrote the book called The Path of Least Resistance, and tension seeks resolution. So we set this tension about, we want to have this amount of income, when we retire. And I think that drove Sherry to go and call a builder client of hers that she was working with in Langford, who was building an apartment building, and said, can, we talk to you about, possibly owning an apartment building one day. That was our idea, that someday in the future we would own an apartment building. So the builder came back to us about a week or 10 days later and said, why don't we build you one? And we went, okay. And not knowing we'd never built a house before. I'd never built a shed before. So building an apartment building was a scary proposition. And the first opportunity that they pitched to us was a 60-unit building.
Wow.
And we went, no.
Kind of scary,
No, I'm not doing that. And the second opportunity they pitched to us was a 20-unit building. And because they pitched us a 60-unit first and a 20-unit second, we thought, well, 20, no problem. Yeah, I could do 20.
And so you did.
So we did, and we made, like 3 or 4 6-figure mistakes on that first building. And which kind of cut into the profit a little bit. But then we did it again. And on the second building, we didn't make those mistakes.
Right.
That was a 30-unit building. And then we did a third building, and that was 63, 64 units. And, it worked out.
There's something that I really believe in. We're always saying, you got to watch other people and learn from other people's mistakes. And I think that is really wrong. You really only learn from your own mistakes. And then they really count, and they matter.
Yeah, and they hurt more. Other people's mistakes don't hurt that much. Mine do.
So now I think, though, you stopped, and you're now looking at yourself as an author and a developer of great ideas, and you're an AI expert. And I think you have something, people don't know that yet, and I'm hopefully can allow to share it, but you're going to be writing courses online. I'll be one of the first ones signing up. But do you have any deals on the go now then?
We just finished a land assembly in Langford. And if I can back up a little bit, I'm not, I don't think I'm an overly positive person by nature. So when we built the first building, I'm thinking, here's the market. The market goes like this, right? Yeah. Over the long term. And I'm thinking, it's like a roller coaster going tick, 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 up to the first thing, right? And so the first building, we're okay. And the second building, tick, 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 tick. And I'm thinking, okay, we're okay here now still. And then the third building, I'm going tick, 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 tick. And I'm thinking, we're at some point it's going to go like that.
Yeah.
And we ended up selling the first 3 buildings, and then we ended up buying another piece of property, which was a duplex, to build a smaller 24-unit building again. And then the neighbors came to us and said, well, we don't want to be in a construction zone. Will you buy our properties? And we went, okay. And then so that one property became 3, and then it became 4, and then it became 5, and then that development became 2 12-story towers. So you start with a 60-unit building, a 20-unit building, and now 2 12-story towers. And the neighbors had a fit. And they went, we don't want this in our neighborhood at all. And they organized, and they went to council, and they had petitions, and they had websites with our names on them going, those are the bad people. They're trying to build, these towers that don't fit on our street, etc. And at the time, I thought that was terrible. And now I think it's fantastic, because that took us out of building. We went from 12-story towers down to 6, and we decided we couldn't really make the numbers work with that. And we had a partner that was kind of went out of the deal, and we went, let's just get out of this thing. So we sold that site to somebody else. And then I'm so glad we did. Yeah, we would be dead today if we were mid-build with those 2 6 or 2 12-story towers.
That's what people don't realize is, people seeing these big bad developers, they're making all this money. Developers taking a huge risk every time. In particular now, when you look at the government is involved. Now the government realized we haven't built anything that we promised or would, or created an environment. And now they have all these incentives for us. What do you think about all our incentives?
I can't make the numbers work. And even with the incentives, I still kind of can't make the numbers work. So they got rid of the 5% GST on the build. But if I'm making 2% profit on it, and you're giving me now between 2 and 7, I'm still like, I don't like that. Like, I like a big margin of safety. And I can't see that margin of safety there, even with the incentives that they're providing. As an example, we invested in a property out east, and we put several $100,000 into this apartment building, and we got a cash call last month saying, we want another 40% from you, please, because when we originally set up this deal, it had X% interest charged by CMHC. It's now more than double that, and we can't make the numbers work. So it's the cost of construction, the supply chain issues, the lending, interest rate stuff. Yep. I can't make it work. And I don't understand, quite frankly, between you and I, how almost anybody can make it work.
Except it's not just here. It's just not here. It's the United States too. There's a lot of investors. Everybody's on a cash call just because of interest rates. Yeah. And you mentioned the GST. First of all, it was only on rental bills. Yeah. And it's one level of government. Good. I've been saying on the radio forever, let's do away with this GST. That way it's 50 to 60,000 a suite. Maybe the developer can get into profit, and maybe we can build them. But then the city of Vancouver goes and says, well, we have to have costs, a new cost for parks, a new cost for this, and they're adding $15,000 a unit, which takes half of the saving of the GST. It's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
They're also serving 2 masters with the environmental stuff that they're insisting on in the builds as well, which I understand. That's a very important problem to address. But if you want to build housing, then you have to stop the friction. As an example, in Victoria, they introduced the missing middle program, and the missing middle is basically duplexes and townhouses where somebody can buy a more affordable property and have a yard for the dog, and a yard for the kids or the swing set or whatever, which you can't have 2 or 3 kids in a condo, 2-bedroom condo. Come on, doesn't work. So the missing middle is also not the single family home where nobody can afford, to buy that in Victoria, et cetera. The number of applications for the missing middle program in the first 9 months of introduction was exactly 0.
Why?
Why? because they added on all of these things that you had to do in order to create a triplex or a fourplex on a lot, and nobody could make the numbers work.
Ceiling heights, parking, lots of things that, it's all these wish lists. And of course, the developer can just add it. There's no cost to this. It doesn't make sense. What about the whole idea of the transit up zoning and the single family zoning? It's all under attack by the government as well.
Yeah. And I mean, this is my fantasy. My fantasy is that they have these programs, but they also have a pre-designed, pre-approved duplex, triplex, fourplex, sixplex, eightplex, pre-designed and pre-approved.
Yeah.
And it's based on the size of the lot. And all you have to do is just say, we want to build this, buy the lot, and go build, and it's pre-approved. The plans are already done. And it might be a box.
Yeah.
So what? If you look at the Vancouver special, which was kind of a box,
sure.
They put it up everywhere, and they put it up quickly.
And it was predictable. The costs were predictable. But the BC government is now putting it out. That's what they want. And give it to everybody that wants to build. And that's exactly what they do. We haven't seen yet is what it looks like, but they're calling it even maybe a Vancouver special. So maybe they're learning.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope. If you're a real estate investor, you don't like this market. No. You don't like the fact that you can't build housing. You don't like the fact that there's people are scrambling to have homes. This is not good. Yeah. And a lot of people are making landlords and real estate investors and developers out to be bad guys, but we're, we'd be happy with a balanced market. I'd be happy with a vibrant middle class, Yeah.
And it's scary sometimes when you look at it. We seem to not have solving the problems. We solve some of the outcome of the problem, like with the short-term rental crisis. Or now this week, the government came out and added everywhere the speculation tax, which is sort of by itself a misnomer, right? But so now Vernon, Coldstream, Penticton, Summerland, Lake Country, and in your area, Cumberland, Parksville, Qualicum Beach, Salmon, they're all now under this umbrella of speculation tax, which really assumes that all of us are really speculator. They're making us to be, some sort of an alien in the government, the developer, the owner. Listen, if I have a nice condo in Vancouver, and let's say I have all my furniture there from 20 years, I have my dishes from my parents there. Now I have to rent it. If I wanted to live 6 months on my Vancouver Island single family little cottage that I built over 20 years and schlepping 2x4s there and build it, now I have to also rent that out. And if I don't do it right, I pay vacation home tax in Vancouver or vacant home tax on the island, or both. I mean, what is it? Was I a speculator? I'm doing the Canadian dream,
Yeah, I was surprised how far they went with the short-term rental thing. I expected it. I didn't expect that they would undercut the local municipalities and their zoning, such that my one Airbnb that's in a transient zoned rental building would be under fire. And that was shocking to me. And it says to me that their next steps could be that if you have a basement, you have to turn it into a rental suite at your cost. Yeah. Or if you have a suite in your basement and it's not rented out, too bad, you got to rent it out. Like where does that kind of stop? So, but, we talked a little bit earlier about, being positive. I can't think about that. I can't control this. No. So my question, Ozzie, that I always ask of myself is, how do I make this irrelevant? How do I make the problem irrelevant?
Yeah.
You
Well, and the thing is, so you're not doing anything then in the real estate around currently?
Well, we are. We have 3 sites that we're looking at rezoning. And then we would, hopefully they are potential apartment building sites that we would then turn around and sell to a developer. But we don't have the intention of building ourselves at the moment, just because we can't make that money work. And then aside from that, we've got rental properties that we continue to rent out, and they just chug along. And
because we have people now, they're sort of just, they're waiting and they're hanging on for dear life. We don't want to be in that position because of, mortgage costs and all these uncertainties. It's not so much the interest rates themselves. Look, you and I have been in markets where rates were 8% and 9% and 10%. But it's the speed with which these rates went up inside a year and this uncertainty as to the future. Well, so what are you thinking about the next few years, given sort of the current interest rates and the governments and everything else?
Well, I'm in a lucky position that we do have some capital, and we have the ability to raise capital if we need to. And I think there's going to be a certain amount of carnage in the marketplace when mortgages come up for renewal. I mean, it was in the paper the other day that something like 50 to 60% of mortgages are going to be coming due in Canada in the next couple of years. And when they do, the average increase in payment per month is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 44% higher, which means if you had a $3,000 mortgage payment, you're now paying almost $4,500. That is going to be crushing to some people.
And according to RBC, that's 184 billion next year and 300 billion in 2025 coming due. So it's right. Substantial.
So that means there are going to be people that are going to be desperate. They're going to have to sell. I don't like to be a bottom feeding shark. But like if prices go down, then maybe I start looking at buying some further property. Sure. I think the big thing that you have to look at is, what is your time horizon? Like, I don't know if I'm going to be on this planet for 3 seconds more or 40 years. I have no idea. So I have to think about planning for 40 years, because I could be 100, and how do I want that to look? So if opportunity, you and I know that if you know exactly what you're looking for, you're more likely to see it when it comes along. And so,
And the thing is, we can look at all of the problems that we're facing, but we've been there. What? In 1990 in the US, 1,000 banks closed down. 1,000, right? We've had Russian cruise, Asian crisis, all of the things going on all the time. But we have a propensity to muddle through. People go through to the other side. But we've got to be like you got to be clever enough to realize that now is not the time to go out there swinging the bat at the moon. You have to be cautious, and you have to look that it is a crazy environment.
I mean, I've always liked your thing about muddling through. I mean, that's not particularly negative. It's just, muddle through, like you make it. I mean, what did Churchill say? If you're going through hell, keep going. Keep going until you get out of there. I watch a lot of Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett video, particularly Munger. Munger has this thing about mental models, which is fantastic. But one of the things he says is that, him and Buffett have lost 50% of their portfolio 3 times. And the lesson there is that it came back 3 times. So you have to have your time horizon way out into the future, and then be willing to take a punch in the stomach every once in a while. And the problem that I've seen with real estate investors in particular is that they quit. They go, this doesn't work. I have a bad tenant, or they start out with a suite in their basement where they're living with their tenants, which is always going to be the worst possible scenario, because you hear everything and you see everything, where if they're on the other side of the city, you don't. You don't have to listen to their guitar, their music, or whatever. So they have that happen, and then they quit, and they never buy another property again. And we've had all kinds of problems with renters and properties and all that sort of stuff, but we just keep going.
Yeah.
And you keep going and it works out.
Well, I just had lunch with a group of very young investors, and they just bought a house with a basement suite, and they're going to move in the basement and then rent the top floor. And I said, no. I mean, you're just newly married, or 1 year married. You want to come home, and this is your home. You feel good. You won't feel good being in the basement. And then you hear everything that's going on out there. And you don't even know whether, yeah, but maybe we're paying the mortgage off in 10 years. Well, you don't even know whether you're going to be still married for 10 years in this crazy environment, right? Live on the top floor, rent the basement.
Well, and that's the newest thing. I think yesterday the government said all new houses have to have a suite.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to live with a tenant if you want to buy a new house going forward.
Well, the thing is, and in addition to that, the short-term rental is you can rent it if it's your personal residence plus 1 unit. So they want us to put in a basement suite. And then now they also sold us a laneway house. Oh, but either one of them cannot be short-term rental. You have to make a choice. So I'd spend $70,000 in fees to get an approval for the laneway house, then $500,000 to build it, to make $3,000 worth of income. I probably lose a third of my free capital gain exemption on my residence, which is, by the way, nobody talks about when they say, oh, you can put 4 houses on the one. What happened to your tax-free capital gain exemption? You're an idiot. If they are there for 20 years and you have $1 million tax-free, think about that, right? So we have all of things going on, have nothing to do with us and our willingness to be a gambling and entrepreneur and all that. It has all to do with what the government is going to do out of the blue,
Yeah,
so stay positive.
So again, you go back to, how do I make this irrelevant?
Yeah.
How do I make it irrelevant? Well, I need to make, whatever it is, how do I make it irrelevant? Because I was thinking today about how incredibly lucky we are, or I am. I mean, I had a coaching call with one of Sherry's realtors this morning. And before I left our place, I sent him a text saying on way. Right. Well, when could you do that in the past where you could just, without a phone, whatever, just go on way? Boom. Like, took me a second. And then I get into my car, and before I fire up my car, I go, you know what? I'm running a little late. So I'm going to go to my Starbucks app and I'm going to go venti, latte, large, boom, hillside mall, bam. And so I drive the 4 minutes to the mall. And I walk into Starbucks and I grab my coffee that's already there. And I wave, thank you very much, to the barista. And off I go to sit down.
Yeah.
Just with a button, with a push of a button. Like, there's so many things that we have now that make our lives easier. And yet the focus for most people is on the difficulty, not the ease. And it's like, focus on the ease. Like, Sherry has a new listing. So she sends me point form, the listing information. And I go into ChatGPT and I go, please write me a friendly and compelling listing description using this information. And ChatGPT goes, now, what's interesting about that, though, Ozzie, is that it doesn't have to go.
No, just go.
It's doing that to make me feel better.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would just go, boom, there you are.
Yeah.
And I go, oh. And so it's actually making it easier on me by being stupider and slowing down the offering that it's giving me. And if you actually think about it, the robots in the future will have to be programmed so they don't finish our sentences. Yeah. Because they could.
They're too fast.
Right? Yeah. They're irritating because they're always so fast. They finish your sentences for you. And, like, who wants an irritating robot?
Well, I think that is so important. The other things I just did, I had a real estate office that asked me to tell a realtor what they could do with ChatGPT. I said, first of all, don't think of it as a one-shot thing. You don't feed in the one letter. When that letter is done, just write it, make it more human, and outcomes are more friendly. Make it more friendly. make it more businesslike. So I took the same letter and put 5 versions. You'd think that it's written by totally different people, all aimed at what is it? Who is that letter going to go to? I mean, when could you do that? I mean, it is, and it literally is seconds because you can take a quick look and then it asks you because it's learning while you're doing this. As I noticed, I write 3 letters and ask them to be human. Everything I feed in next afterward comes into this human voice. And then I write in, make it more businesslike, and up come points, forms, and different kind of mind-boggling. And I have a program now. You're much further advanced in this AI than I am. I use a program called Pictory.ai, and I've already December a year ago. So I was an early adopter, which allows me to talk. That converts it into text. Then I read the text, and up come all these pictures. I might say the percentage rate in England and Germany is, and up come pictures from Germany and England and a percentage, and I go click, click, click. Takes me half an hour, sometimes an hour. But it's an hour to have a professional look. Man, the people say, Ozzie, he must have a huge number of people doing this. No. Well, and you can make the thing actually sing, moving pictures and witticisms. Amazing new world.
Now, you make money off what you're creating. Yes?
Yeah.
Like you posted on YouTube or wherever, podcast, Apple, whatever, and you then make money. So you are creating from nothing income producing assets.
Yeah.
And you get a residual. So people are watching your video at 3 o'clock in the morning in Singapore, right? And it's adding to your total views. And at which point, at the end of every month, you get a check.
Yeah.
Now, the barista at Starbucks, who's thinking about making Starbucks a unionized, shop so that they can make more money, as opposed to learning from you or Mr. Beast about how to make money online by creating stuff from nothing. Like literally, you could do an interview like you're doing now with somebody and post the interview, and in some category of information that you have a natural interest about, and you'd be making money.
Well, that's the crazy thing is, we will take this interview, we'll make both a video and a podcast, and we do all that in a relatively short period of time. The thing is that we are in a world that's going at 100 miles an hour. I play a computer game on my phone with my grandson, and or rather my granddaughter, my daughter, and my wife, and it's called Heyday. And we are addicted to the damn thing. Then I play a computer game, the Clash of Clans, with 30 million other people around the world with my son-in-law. Now you say, well, it keeps me occupied and all that, but what it does is doesn't make us money, but it makes us together. I have a chance to be with the kids and with my son-in-law, and in between we can sort of exchange a little note about this and that. We are more connected, by the fact that my grandchildren, adult grandchildren, are on Facebook. I know what they're doing. You never knew as a grandfather what your 18-year-old was doing. Now, you have to be careful not to get involved. They can't spell.
And you might not want to know what they're doing.
That's another thing. But if you do, you have to shut up. The moment they find out that you're there, right, they've forgotten about it. But the point is, it's a new world. Well, look, you're a positive guy. How do you stay positive?
I don't think I was always a positive guy. I think that it's happened over time as a result of just continually increasing and becoming more, and like what I am is a lifetime learner, which is one of the reasons why I joined your real estate action group. It's one of the reasons why what I watch and consume on YouTube are things that I'm learning or want to learn. Like I spend way more time watching those kind of videos and saving them for later so that I can watch and learn that stuff. That I think that's what's made us in part successful. And when you're successful, hey, the stress goes away a little bit. Like it does help that you have a certain amount of rental income coming in a month.
Sure.
And I think the other thing that that helps is to stay away from the negative stuff, even if they're right.
Yeah.
There might be a bunch of negative prognosticators out there who are right.
Yeah.
I don't care. I got enough problems keeping this thing happy without them feeding the negativity. So I came up with a thing the other day, and it's a fable, and so here's the cloud of negativity, right? And I think that there are a bunch of people who are these giraffes, and the giraffes that they are giraffes that have perpendicular necks, and they're continually always in the cloud of negativity. And what they don't realize is that there are a bunch of other giraffes that are above the clouds, right? Yeah. Where it is always
sunny.
Yeah. So if you want to get stuff done, you've got to stay positive. You've got to focus on where you're going and what you want to do. And you have to, as much as possible, ignore the negativity, especially the things that you can't do anything about. Well, I can't do anything about what the government does. I can't do anything about that, really, other than vote, right? And that voting thing only takes up a certain amount of my time every 2 or 4 years. Aside from that, what am I going to do? Go protest at the legislature? Yeah. Maybe, but well, really,
it's like you quoted Churchill, and Churchill says, "Democracy is the worst kind of government, but it's the best we have." Right? So you work within it, and you vote within it, as you said. What I really like is what you started out by saying, is to making problems irrelevant.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? I mean, maybe 90% of the problems that you think about never happen anyways, but how do you make them irrelevant? Because normally they have a habit of sneaking into your mind as you're not thinking about it.
Well, one of the ways that well, first of all, time will make almost every single problem irrelevant. And so if you think about it from the standpoint of, is this going to be a problem for me in a month or a year? It's going to help to reframe whatever that problem is. We have an Airbnb that is transient zoned, that now cannot be rented on even a monthly basis. So I'm going to turn it into a furnished rental, and rent it out that way. And I'm going to go find ways to make more money somewhere else.
Sure.
And make that irrelevant. So I'm not going to try and butt my head up against that rule. I'm going to go make money somewhere else and then pay off that mortgage so that it's still making income for me and it's still a valuable asset.
Well, that's true. I talked to a developer who's bought a property in a small town, BC, and he says, you know what, I'm going to take my money and I'm going to Alberta. He's making the problem irrelevant. He says, I'm not going to go and butt my head, and local governments saying they want to help me, and no, I don't want to do it. Right? I'm gone.
I mean, the corollary to that is to give people what they want. Like, I don't believe in trying to make, as a salesperson, I don't believe in trying to make somebody buy what I'm selling. I'd rather find the people that want to buy what I'm selling, or I want to find out what that person wants to buy and go help them buy it.
100%.
And when we were building, we didn't try and make the city of Langford accept our building. I mean, it was fascinating, Ozzie. We built, like, our builder was building on this particular block, and we went to Langford and asked them, what do you want? And they told us. We had the mayor of Langford in our first building, and he said, well, what we'd like is what you built here on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
So we bought on the other side of the street and built a building there. Like,
but you make it sound so easy and it's all good luck. No, you were out there wide open to learn and to grow. And that's the key. You're growing into your own future best self with an open heart and an open mind. I mean, you told me the story that you were scared to death the whole way. So, it's a major undertaking. And then slowly you grow into the new you. I mean, what people don't realize is what an eclectic individual you are. The books you wrote, I mean, they're small books, but everybody should read them. We're gonna put the title of the books that he wrote. Which one will you still sell?
Well, the one that's on Kindle is What's Stopping You.
What's Stopping You? What a great book. What's the premise of that book?
So the basic idea was I was trying to write a book, which was 18 holes to your goals. And I was stuck. And I went, what is going on here? I've been working on this book for 8 years. I have boxes of material that I've been thinking about this book for years. And the reason I had this premise was I knew there was something in the game of golf that was a secret, because when I went golfing, I would finish 18 goals in a row.
Sure.
And so there must be something in that. And you have a target and you go from one thing to the next, et cetera, et cetera. But I was stuck. And I went at one point during the process, I asked myself, what is stopping? Like I asked myself, what is going on? How do I explain the fact that I'm not writing this book? And I just put the question kind of out into the ether, like a pebble into a pond. And I just waited, and I didn't know the answer. And the answer came back was, well, maybe you don't want to write books. And I went, huh? Well, maybe that's actually true. So I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down the reasons I didn't want to write books. And there were a bunch of reasons. And what it occurred to me then was that this was like a gas pedal and a brake pedal. It's like, I want to write this book. I don't want to write this book. And what happens when you have the gas and the brake pressed down at the same time? Well, your wheels spin. And what was my experience? My wheels were spinning. I was getting nowhere. And so over time, I took this process of inquiry to the brake pedal and said, I don't want to write books because I don't want to be criticized. Is that true? Can I absolutely know it's true? And I would inquire and look at this idea. And I realized, actually, I do want to be criticized, because if my writing is criticized, I will become a better writer.
Yeah.
And so over time, all of the stuff that were reasons for not wanting to write books, the brake pedal came off. Now, what happens when the brake pedal comes off? You just go.
And you wrote the whole thing very quickly after that.
So What's Stopping You was the first book that I wrote, and then the 18 Holes to Your Goals was the second book that I wrote, which I'm going to put on Kindle.
And we'll have it on the bottom of the screen. And if you listen to it on podcast, just come to osbuzz.ca and I'll feature it. The interesting thing was I'll help you with your book launch. And on the way back from the ferry from Victoria, I started leafing through the book. And one of the premises was, whenever you say, what's stopping you, and you ask yourself, do I like to do this? And you say, I want to do this. And you reverse that and you say, I don't want to do this. So I sat there and I thought, I want to lose weight. That's what I want. I want to lose weight. And then I thought, well, he said, it's kind of a crazy premise. He said, turn it around and say, I don't want to lose weight. So I wrote, I do not want to lose weight. When I saw there was a bloody epiphany. I really, really didn't want to lose weight. No, and I decided to just stop saying I want to lose weight. Well, that's one solution, or do something about it. But that little book, that What's Stopping You, has rattled the cage of many people in our course and anybody that reads it. So tell me, we're coming closer to the end of our journey here. What else are you working on?
I'm very blessed to have 7 people that call me Opa.
Yeah.
And so
I got 5.
I like creating things for them. And so this thing I'm wanting to make a a book or a video about that, like this, as a fable. Working on some online courses. I want to take my 18 holes to your goals and make that into a course, an online course.
Perfect.
And there are a bunch of other things that I'd like to make courses about. So that's going to be my focus going forward. And the idea, in a way, is to make my dependence on my real estate income irrelevant. Mm-hmm. So if something happened, some weird catastrophic thing happened to my rental properties, I still have an income coming in from online courses or something like that. So that's the premise. Plus, I love the creating process.
Well, the other thing is you're also a great teacher. I think that when you get on the stage, your true self comes out, because you're a born speaker. You can paint the pictures and everybody can relate to it, particularly because you're not sort of a theoretical university graduate telling somebody else's theory. You're actually doing stuff. You're an action taker. You've been a realtor, you've been a writer, you've been a developer, and the sky is the limit from here on in. I look forward to seeing the future teacher of these great courses. I want to sign up for the first one. Everybody that listens or is on video, down below we have, Rick will give me the idea where to go on Kindle for the book, and also maybe he'll allow us to put up an info email where you can write him with your questions. Rick, I thank you so much for taking the time today, and I wish you 18 more great holes of golf and 18 more books.